The bridge at dawn. Amelia had always walked across the old stone bridge on her way to the library. It was her quiet ritual, the soft sound of the river beneath, the smell of morning dew, and the first rays of sunlight spilling across the town. One autumn morning, she noticed someone standing there, a young man sketching the view. He looked up as she passed. "Beautiful, isn't it?" he asked, holding up his notebook. A rough sketch of the river and the bridge filled the page. Amelia smiled politely, then walked on, but something about his voice lingered with her all day. The next morning, he was there again. And the morning after. They began to talk, first about the scenery, then about books, dreams, and little pieces of their lives. His name was Daniel, an artist who had recently moved to the town. Amelia found herself waking up earlier just to have more time on the bridge. As weeks passed, their friendship grew into something deeper. On chilly mornings, Daniel would bring her coffee, and Amelia would carry a book for him. Their laughter seemed to echo with the sound of the river. Yet neither of them said the words they both felt, afraid the magic would break. One foggy dawn, Amelia arrived to find Daniel waiting with his sketchbook open. Inside was a drawing of her, standing on the bridge, hair caught in the wind, eyes full of light. Beneath it, he had written, "My favorite view." Her heart caught in her throat. Daniel looked nervous, his hands trembling. "Amelia," he whispered, "I don't just come here for the view. I come here for you." Tears blurred her eyes as she stepped closer. "I know," she replied softly, "because so do I." In that quiet morning, with the river flowing endlessly beneath them, their hands found each other. The bridge that had once been just a path became the place where two hearts finally met. And every dawn after, Amelia and Daniel returned. Not for the view, but for the promise that love would always wait for them there. The bridge at dusk. Evelyn had always loved the old wooden bridge at the edge of town. It was quiet there, away from the rush of streets and the noise of people. She often sat on its railings at dusk, watching the river reflect the colors of the sky. That evening, however, she wasn't alone. Daniel was already there, sketchbook in hand. He glanced up when she arrived, a little startled but smiling. "I didn't think anyone else came here," he said. "I could say the same about you," Evelyn replied, settling beside him. They talked, at first lightly, about the weather, the town, the way the river looked different every evening. Then deeper, about books they loved, the dreams they kept hidden from others, and the quiet loneliness that sometimes clung to their days. Words seemed to flow as naturally as the water below. Days turned into weeks, and the bridge became their meeting place. Evelyn began to look forward to the moment the sky turned gold, when she would see Daniel waiting with his sketchbook. He drew her once, shyly showing the portrait. "You look like you belong to the sunset," he said. Her heart raced at the simplicity and honesty in his voice. One evening, rain clouds gathered. Evelyn almost didn't go, but something pulled her toward the bridge. She found Daniel standing there, soaked but smiling as if he had been waiting only for her. "Why are you here in the rain?" she asked, breathless. "Because I knew you would come," he said softly. The rain poured harder, but neither of them moved. Daniel reached for her hand, and Evelyn didn't pull away. The world around them blurred, but in that moment, they felt anchored, in the river's song, in the rain's rhythm, and in the warmth of each other's touch. When he finally kissed her, it was not hurried or dramatic. It was gentle, certain, like two souls finding a place they had always been meant to return to. From then on, the bridge was no longer just a place of solitude. It became the start of something enduring, a quiet love story written in sunsets, rain, and the unspoken promise of always showing up for each other. Beneath the old bridge. It was a late summer evening when Claire returned to her hometown after years of living abroad. The river that once carried her childhood laughter still flowed quietly, and the old wooden bridge still stretched across it, worn but steady. She walked slowly, her suitcase rolling behind her, until she stopped at the bridge's entrance. She hadn't expected to see him there. Daniel, her first love, leaned against the railing, staring at the water as if the river held answers. His hair was shorter now, his shoulders broader, but the way he carried silence had not changed. "Daniel?" Her voice trembled. He turned, eyes widening for a heartbeat before softening into a smile. "Claire. You're back." For a moment, time folded in on itself. They were 17 again, passing secret notes, making promises under stars. But years had stretched between them, years of choices, distances, and words left unsaid. "I didn't think you'd be here," she whispered. "I never left," he replied simply. "This bridge, it kept me company. Sometimes I wondered if it would bring you back." They stood side by side, the evening air carrying the scent of pine and the hum of cicadas. Claire's heart thudded with both joy and ache. "I thought of you often," she admitted. "But life pulled me away." Daniel nodded, not accusing, not bitter. "And yet, here you are." Silence stretched, but it was no longer heavy. Claire looked at him, at the familiar kindness in his eyes, and something unspoken passed between them, an old bond resurfacing, fragile but real. The sun dipped lower, painting the river gold. Daniel extended his hand, hesitant but hopeful. "Stay a little longer. Walk with me, like we used to." Claire's breath caught. She slipped her hand into his, warmth spreading through her chest. The years melted, and in that moment, the bridge was not just wood and nails, it was a place where time paused, where love once lost could be found again. As they walked slowly across, hand in hand, Claire realized some stories didn't end. They simply waited for the right chapter to begin. A chance in the rain. The rain had just begun to fall when Emma left the cafe, clutching her notebook close to her chest. She hated rainy days, her hair frizzed, her shoes soaked, and her mood usually followed. But that day, the rain gave her something unexpected. On the corner, as she waited for the light to change, her notebook slipped from her hands. Paper scattered across the wet pavement, ink smudging under raindrops. She crouched quickly, trying to save them, when another hand reached down. "Here," a warm voice said. She looked up and met the eyes of a man holding one of her drenched pages. He had dark hair plastered to his forehead, a crooked smile, and eyes that seemed too calm for the storm around them. "Thanks," Emma said breathlessly, tucking the pages back. He tilted his head. "You're a writer?" "Trying to be," she replied. "Mostly just scribbles." "I like scribbles," he said. "They're honest." They ended up walking in the same direction, his umbrella barely wide enough to shelter them both. Conversation flowed easily, as if they'd known each other longer than a handful of minutes. His name was Daniel, a photographer who claimed he never planned his days, just followed where the light or weather took him. By the time the rain eased, they stood outside Emma's apartment building. She didn't want the moment to end, but hesitation tugged at her. Daniel broke the silence. "I don't usually do this, but would you mind if I called you sometime? I'd like to hear more of your scribbles." Emma's heart raced. She'd spent years convincing herself love stories were only for her pages, not her life. But the sincerity in his eyes felt like the start of something worth writing about. She smiled, handing him a page that the rain hadn't ruined, her number scrawled at the bottom. "Only if you promise not to lose this one." He laughed softly. "Not a chance." That night, as Emma watched raindrops streak down her window, she realized the storm had left her with more than soggy shoes and smeared ink. It had left her with a beginning. The last train home. It was nearly midnight when Emma found herself standing alone on the platform. The last train had been delayed, and the quiet night wrapped around her like a heavy blanket. She hugged her coat closer, staring at the dim lights flickering above. "Still waiting?" a warm voice asked. She turned. It was Daniel, the stranger she had seen here many times before, always with a book in his hand. Tonight, instead of reading, he was looking directly at her. "Yeah," she smiled faintly, "seems like the train has forgotten us." He chuckled. "Maybe it's giving us more time." That reply surprised her. For weeks, they had shared the same platform, the same silence, the same waiting. yet neither had spoken until now. And suddenly, the air between them felt alive. They began to talk. At first about the weather, then about the books they loved, the places they dreamed of visiting, the childhood memories that still made them laugh. The minutes passed unnoticed, melting into the rhythm of their words. When the train finally screeched into the station, Emma almost wished it hadn't come. She didn't want the night, or their conversation, to end. On the train, they sat side by side. Their shoulders brushed, and she felt a strange comfort, as if she had known him far longer than an hour. Daniel glanced at her, then spoke softly. "Funny, isn't it? How we've waited here for weeks, and only now decided to meet." Emma's lips curved into a shy smile. "Maybe we were waiting for the right night." As the train rocked gently, he reached for her hand. It was a small gesture, hesitant, yet full of meaning. She didn't pull away. Instead, she let her fingers intertwine with his. The city lights flickered past the window, but Emma barely noticed. All she felt was the warmth of his hand, the quiet promise of something beginning. By the time the train slowed at her stop, she hesitated to stand. Daniel did too. He finally said, "Can I see you tomorrow? Not just on this platform?" Her heart raced, but her answer was simple. Yes. As the door slid open, she stepped off the train with a smile that carried her through the night. For the first time in a long while, Emma wasn't just waiting for the last train home. She was waiting for tomorrow, with him.